My name is Micah Dodd, and I'm the CTO of Swift Law North. Joining me today is Aaron Swift. He's our CEO. How are you, Aaron?
Good, thanks, Mike.
Today we're going to continue talking about FDCPA, and specifically we're going to discuss the secrets of debt collection and the junk debt industry. So, Aaron, ahead of time, you gave me a list of secrets, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over them one by one, and you just basically talk about them.
Okay.
So, let's start with debt collectors. How do debt collectors get paid?
Yeah, it's a good first question. And again, just as a reminder to our audience and scholars that you may see our mascot, Finn, in and out of these videos. Don't mind him. He just likes to participate. So, Mike, so the first question you asked me is a secret about debt collectors. How do they get paid, right? So debt collectors get paid in a number of ways. Sometimes they get a percentage of the money they collect, which makes sense why they're so aggressive, right? If they kind of, as a statement, eat what you kill, so to speak, if you only get paid if they collect the money, that incentivizes a lot of aggressive behavior, which can lead to going over the line of harassment or some things. But a lot of times you can think of it that way. If they're only getting paid if they actually collect money from the consumer, well, that really dictates kind of what they end up doing in their conduct. Or sometimes they're just paid a contract rate. You know, you have to make a certain amount of phone calls, you have to write a certain amount of letters. And we find that those types of collectors are not as aggressive. But yeah, it's usually one of those two ways.
Okay, and do all debt collectors sue?
It's a great question. We're asked that all the time. You know, consumers fear that just because a debt was turned over to a debt collector, that it automatically means they're going to get sued. And that is not the case. It can be, but it's not always the case. And another thing to keep in mind with that question is one of the secrets of the debt collection industry is the debt collectors have to be very careful when explaining, do they owe the debt or are they collecting on behalf of someone else? When you ask the question, do debt collectors sue or do they all sue, we have to understand, do they own the debt or not to sue? And that's something we're going to talk about a little bit later is what does it mean to be a debt buyer or a junk debt buyer? But debt collectors cannot threaten to sue if they don't own the debt, right? So if Capital One hires a third-party debt collector and then they send a letter that says, we're going to sue you, that's a problem. But if it says, if you don't pay us, our client might sue you, that would be different. But debt collectors to sue, they have to own it. And if they own it, it's probably because they're a debt buyer, which we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Okay, and regarding debt collectors again, do they all credit report?
No, and that is a misunderstanding in this industry. Not all debt collectors credit report. And those that do, don't credit report to all of the bureaus or even all of the same ones. So it's critically important when we're working with consumers directly or some of our affiliate partners, some of our scholars that work directly with consumers is if you see a debt collector on one report, don't assume it's going to be on all of them. And the reverse is true. If you don't see a debt collector on a specific report, don't assume it's not on all of them because not all debt collectors credit report, and the ones that do don't do it all to the same bureaus.
Okay. And do debt collectors really make money collecting from consumers?
It's an interesting question, right? Because some people think these are consumers that have already defaulted, they can't pay their debts. What are the chances that a debt collector is going to be successful? And I will tell you, very much so. Debt collectors have notoriously made a lot of money in this country's history. It's one of the reasons why the FDCPA was passed. And despite all these protections, we're talking about billion-dollar corporations with a B, especially some of these debt buyers that buy old debt, which again, we're going to talk about. They collect it so aggressively, they make a lot of money. And it's why it's so important to use this statute to protect consumers, not only in defensive capacity, but when a debt collector does step over the line, because they're making so much money on what they're doing, they should fairly compensate consumers when they break the law.
Okay. So now let's switch gears a little bit and let's move on to junk debt buyers. And let's start just, what are junk debt buyers?
Yeah, it's an interesting name, right? So junk debt buyers is an industry, and they call themselves debt buyers. They don't use the pejorative junk in the name. But what they do is they buy up old debt. So it's a downstream financial decision where I'll just keep using Capital One, and I'm not singling them out. It's just an easy example that most people have heard of. Capital One might have 10,000 old credit cards that are in default, and they're the same type of card. It was a department store card. They just have this batch of old bad debt. What they do is they package it up and they sell it to others. And the ones that buy it are debt buyers. It's the debt buying industry or the junk debt buyers. So this is a new player, and they're not the first creditor, right? We've talked about definitions throughout this video series. They're not the creditor that you contracted with. And they're not a third-party debt collector that's been hired by the person. So who are they? They're this third thing. And the important thing is they are qualified as debt collectors. And if you remember, hearkening back to the definition video when I talked about the definition of a debt collector can be someone who, when they obtain a debt, it's already in default. Mm-hmm. And that's what's happening here, right? So you've got a set of defaulted debt, it gets packaged together and sold as a portfolio. It's bought by this junk debt buyer, and now they allegedly own it. And now it's kind of like they're a creditor, but they do still have to, be subject to the FDCPA and follow its rules. So that's kind of who they are.
Okay, and how do they buy a consumer's debt?
Very cheaply and very easily, actually. Those portfolios are put up on a marketplace, almost like this auction place. And these companies can bid on it. And the highest bidder gets that portfolio of debt. Now, I want to use the word buy in quotations because these companies have to effectively and really buy it to really own it. And that gets into some interesting things we can talk about later in the series and even credit reporting about what happens when this company that buys this debt, if they can't actually prove it. Because a lot of times what they're buying is just a spreadsheet line item. So that 10,000 package of debts, they didn't get 10,000 contracts with it. They didn't get 10,000 account statements or 100,000 account statements because they got all the account history. All they get is very limited information. So how can they prove they own it? And that's one interesting thing about this industry. And it's a secret of the debt buying industry is that a lot of times they can't. They can't truly prove they bought it because to legally buy it means it comes with all the rights and responsibilities. And sometimes these debts are sold 5-6 times. And then by the time the 5th, 6th, 7th buyer has this debt, owns this debt, how could they ever prove it? They're not going to have the original contracts, any of the statements. So again, I use buy in quotations, but they buy them in these sets and they start to try to collect them.
Okay. And what do they pay for it?
That's the $1 million question. Very little. So on average, and depending on the type of debt, these debt buyers may pay a maximum of 13 cents on the dollar or as low as 1.5 cents on the dollar. So let's just use that, some math, right? Mm-hmm. They buy a $10,000 credit card debt. The maximum, and that's not even common, let's say they pay 13% for that. So that's $1,300. So $10,000 debt is bought for $1,300. Well, guess what? That company's going to come after you for the $10,000. So think of the delta that they may have just made. It's incredible, this low value that these packages of debts have, that's what they're being bought for. But then the company that buys is starting you owe the whole thing. And why it's in this lecture series, The Secrets, because that gives us a lot of power as consumers, as repair specialists, as industry insiders, and certainly as lawyers, is knowing these secrets gives me power. And let me explain that. One is, if a junk debt buyer sues one of my clients or a consumer comes to one of our professional partners, our affiliate scholars that are, in our litigation program, if they're being sued and it's a junk debt buyer, I automatically know certain things. That one, they're probably going to be willing to settle that debt and probably pretty cheaply. They look like heroes. So let's again just use that $10,000 debt. They paid $1,300 for it. If they come to the consumer and say, I own this debt now, again, setting aside whether they can legally prove it, and you owe $10,000. You used to owe it to Capital One. I now own it. I'm a really nice guy. I'm one of the good people in this place. Pay me $6,000. I'll give you a 40% discount. 50%, 40%. As long as they make more money than the $1,300, they have profit, and then they have costs associated. So if you know it's a junk debt buyer, it gives us a lot of power, consumers, to one, negotiate, and then also to maybe win and prove that they can't legally own this debt. And if we can do that, we can countersue. So
Mhm.
that's a really important thing to know these secrets, because you can leverage those secrets to help consumers, to help yourselves, and then to help us file these lawsuits.
Okay. And can these junk debt buyers can and do they sue?
Yeah, so that's a great next question, is they still try to sue on this old debt. And some things to keep in mind are some of the things we've talked about throughout this video series is, if they've sued, what is the statute of limitations? Can they prove they own this debt? And the beauty of the FDCPA is we can apply all those protections, all of the regulations to this industry as well. So not just debt collectors that are collecting on someone's behalf, but someone who allegedly bought the debt, allegedly owns it, and is now trying to get an incredible windfall by collecting the full amount of a debt that they paid so little for. But that's not to say it doesn't stop them from trying to sue. And the reason they do is because a lot of consumers default and then get default judgments or are too afraid. And they know this. This industry knows it. I've seen some stats that as high as 92% of consumers that are sued don't even show up in court, and they get default judgments against them. The industry knows that too. They know going in, there's not a chance I can prove probably in this court of law that I own this piece of paper, because all I have is this line item and it's been bought 7 times. But I know that there's only an 8% chance that consumer is going to show up. And then of those 8% of consumers that show up, only 1% of those have lawyers.
Right.
So these numbers are just insane when you think about it. But the protections of the FDCPA should always come first. Dispute these issues, challenge the credit reporting, ask them to stop calling, ask them to prove that they owe these debts. And if they can't, if they step over the line, contact us, contact one of our affiliate partners, because we want to hold them accountable.
Okay. And now stepping back, how does it all tie into the world of credit reporting?
Yeah, and kind of what I was just talking about. You can use the protections of the FDCPA at your disposal for the consumers, for the affiliate partners to fight back. And if you do that, it can definitely affect credit reporting and credit repair and credit. And this is how. So let's just use a common example. LVNV is one of the biggest debt buyers in this space. I'm sure if you're watching these videos, you've probably heard that name, see that name, maybe 100 times. They buy debt for very little, and they park it on credit reports. What if they sue my client, and I am able to defeat them in court? I can prove, because they don't have the paper, or for whatever reason, we win. Well, what should they do with the credit reporting? What do you think they should do with the credit reporting then?
I don't know.
Yeah, fix it, right? Like, if they're going into court saying I owe $10,000, I defeat them.
Right.
Well, shouldn't they go back to the credit report and now say I owe 0? Do you think they do that?
I don't think they do.
Of course not. So that's one way this ties into this whole world of the FDCPA has these protections. You have to prove ownership. You have to prove you have these rights. And if we defeat them, if we use a FDCPA suit to get them to remove credit reporting, they often don't. So all these things, you want to apply these same principles, the definitions, the standards, to think about in a defensive capacity, how is this all protecting our consumers, our clients, our friends, our family, ourselves? But then let's switch the narrative. Let's take the power back. How can we use these laws to fight back? And you can use them as credit reporting with deletions, trade line deletions, debt forgiveness, which is really what the consumers wanted to begin with.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And so as always, if you guys have any questions, you can ask in our weekly sessions or also in the private chats. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.